Hey everybody. I'm going to start off by being self-honest. I have my notes open, so I'm not just saying this by heart today, even though I normally do, with a couple notes. This is like a lot of notes. My goal is to make a master video on the overmind, or ultraviolet in spiral dynamics, integral, and what I consider to be stage Aubergine in the standard model. Now, I am becoming aware that the model is not 100% compatible with the integral model, but it's very close. You could find a way to interconnect them, and one of the components of that is complicated, and it relates to what you believe you're at. Like, if you believe you're at a specific stage, then your mind will encourage you to adopt those values in the next V-meme. That's how it works. Your mind is a big contributing factor in terms of why you evolve. So that's just a small component, just to put it out there. It's not completely compatible, but it's close enough. Now, let's go to the beginning. I'm reading through Ken Wilber's book called The Religion of Tomorrow, and amazingly, the major component that Ken Wilber brings up is that the overmind, in terms of personality, in terms of their outlook on life, is an immense enthusiasm for life. I quote. And what did I say to someone recently? What do I experience in Aubergine? Enthusiasm. I'm proactive about life. I've reached a masculine action stage, so I have more action-oriented goals. And I use the word enthusiasm because I feel filled with energy. And even when I don't feel filled with energy, I have an enthusiasm to be filled with energy. So that word I used was intuitive, and it was grasping the truth that Ken Wilber also knew about this stage. And I'm confirming it that as I believe I'm entering into this stage, this is the stage. Now, I didn't speak to Ken Wilber in terms of what stage I'm at. I never spoke to him in my life, and I do hope to speak to him one day soon in the future, for a variety of reasons. And so that's important. Okay, so another thing Aubergine focuses on is Ken Wilber proceeds to say that stage Aubergine is so beyond the center of gravity of most human beings that it gets very lonely at the top third tier. Now, he says this applies to indigo as well. Indigo is somewhere around stage coral, right? It starts to feel lonely. And I like to agree with that, emphatically agree with that. It gets very lonely. And because there's so much groupthink because of stage green, you even get pushed away. So it gets really tough for stage coral people. Now, at this stage, Ken Wilber says they're on their own, stage Aubergine. Now, this applied to stage coral, but they had the guts to communicate with previous stages. In stage Aubergine, you're so far removed from previous stages, you kind of choose to go your own way and to not really. And not only that, Ken Wilber agrees that they have to go their own way because their intellect and intelligence, intuition, is so far beyond regular man's. Their brain is moving at a rate that cannot be calculated. Wisdom is just going in, and comprehension is constantly happening. So no one can guide them or compete with them. And they don't necessarily want to compete with anyone either. And then Ken Wilber goes on to say, usually higher stages, they have addictions, they have allergies, they have pathologies. They often get these things, and he doesn't go into details why, and he doesn't say that's going to happen. He says that he says it happens. Sometimes, often, whatever it was, he says it happens. And I'm commenting that the reason why an upper stage gets these allergies is because they're trying to compensate for a lack of integration into society. They don't have anyone to relate to. So something in the lower rungs activates, whether it's the sacral chakra, or the root chakra. And so therefore different biological needs become more important. I have a separate model that I've created. I haven't released it in public yet, but I'm getting there. And it discusses how there's a certain pattern of psychological needs that become most important. So I made a claim that stage red is about esteem. Stage red wants to have attention. That's why they want to be a dominant. Yes, of course, they want to assure their survival. But the reason why they don't love themselves enough to believe that they can survive well enough is because they want to prove themselves. It's interlinked. And so every 4 other stages, you're going to have a repeating pattern. So Aubergine, once again, wants esteem. So when you get into the stage, you may say, oh, the lowest chakra rung is going to activate and you're going to be obsessed with sex. You're going to be obsessed with materialism. Not necessarily. I find that the reason why they're enthusiastic for life is not because they're searching for materialism. They're searching for the highest possible materialism. The highest is contribution and integration. You want like everyone to be like on par. It's like a family. So it's the upper rungs that are being satisfied. The esteem relates to upper rungs. So they're going to be more enthusiastic for things related to esteem and community rather than base instincts. It doesn't mean those rungs can't be active. I'm just making the suggestion that it's going to be less common. It's going to be more common for stage coral to activate the lower rungs of dysfunction if they have dysfunction than Aubergine. And it seems that Ken Wilber was uncertain if Clear had bad addictions, but then later on he resolves to say that, yeah, it can happen and it does happen. That they too have bad addictions. So I commented they have no way to tolerate these high states of consciousness otherwise. So they function with substitutes so as to satisfy their needs. And based on my 4-pattern model, the need that they're lacking that they don't realize, if you're in stage clear is like one in no one's in stage clear, because if you get there, it probably other rungs are being active, so it's not like the highest, healthiest form of clear. But the need that you're searching for is transcendence. So this gets complicated because Ken Wilber said that you get allergies to things like not wanting to adopt too many. You want to adopt restrictions. This is especially applicable. He didn't say this, my words. This is especially applicable in the feminine stages, in like teal and turquoise, and once again in clear. So I would suggest that you need to factor in all your needs as you ascend these stages. And you see how complicated it gets. Like once you get the stage clear, you need transcendence. You need to feel like you're going above the body. But at the same time, maybe you never satisfied previous needs in your lifetime. You never married, or you didn't get what you felt. You didn't go through orange ever. So what's going to happen is you're going to have lower rungs that are dysfunctional as a result. So you have to factor that into your experience, that you may need to deal with those rungs so as to get your higher needs of transcendence. So you may want to have a girlfriend and, have sexual relations in the morning and then, or in the afternoon, but meditate in the morning. That way you get both of your needs that your body or psyche's searching for. Okay. And I noticed that what I've been doing in stage Aubergine is I've been eating a lot of foods. So this, I gained a lot of weight in stage coral. I was confused and I was just searching for numbing agents and better than drugs. I mean, it's better to get obese than to smoke heroin, or something. So that's what I did. I gained 30 pounds, which is not obese, it's just overweight. And what I ended up But what ended up happening recently in this masculine stage, I started eating again, but not in a way that's hurting me. So I become much more balanced. Sage Aubergine becomes, they're coming from a place of I want to be hedonistic, I want to get pleasure, but not from a place of I want to stuff myself to distract myself from how much I'm annoyed at life. No, they're way beyond being annoyed at life. What they want, the general Aubergine, a healthy Aubergine, what they want is they want to appreciate life in the best way possible. And that's what it comes down to. Oh, what can I eat that's unhealthy, but I can manage so I can get the most pleasure without the unhealthy side effects of like feeling grouchy, getting too tired, getting oily skin. And so I follow the OMA diet, the 1 meal a day. And the OMA diet's perfect for stage Aubergine because you can satisfy all your food cravings and your desire to experience life, have exuberance, to be out there with what other people are doing. In this context, doing what other people are doing is part of esteem. It's part of like integration. It's a small facet that is not conventionally understood as that, but it fits into that category nonetheless. And so that's why I choose to eat a lot. But the point is there may be some allergy or dysfunction that's trying to percolate into my being. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, no, I'm not going to let that dysfunction be present. I'm going to enjoy life without getting addicted. So could you say the unhealthy version of that is to get addicted? Very possible. That if you're unhealthy with your stage, you're going to overindulge and say, oh, I'm enthusiastic for life, I don't mind getting fat. Or I'm enthusiastic for life, I don't mind doing things that are dangerous, even without proper instruction. So that might be the unhealthy version. So I had commentary. This video may be quite long, so I hope you guys enjoy this. Maybe I'll put spiral dynamics in the title so more people go through the whole thing or as much as possible. Aubergine starts to recoil from all structures. So the way I understood that wording that Ken Wilber gave was they don't like the abstract, but they rather the all or nothing approach to life. They rather see things in definitive terms. I want to ascertain the truth of something. So that's how that's their version of recoiling, because he mentioned recoiling in regard to tier into this later tier. If it's true, I'm going to join you, and if it's not true, I'm going to step back. So their fixation on recoiling, on taking a step back from structures. So he used the word structures. Now, how you interpret that, I have to clarify, but it seems to be wanting to take a step back from people, from the way things are being done. Fixation on recoiling can actually be a desire for precision. This is my commentary. And removing yourself from anyone who remains in the abstract format as their method for creating definitive understandings. This is what I wrote. So let me say that in better words. If you're being too abstract, I can't pinpoint what that means. So I don't want to listen to you because I can't use that. If you tell me some abstract notions from spirituality, I can't use that to create my own truth. So I don't want to hear that. Then Wilber proceeds to explain the metamind, which is comparable to teal or violet, because he calls, so violet, we're going to say, metamind violet, pushes away desire. He says this recoiling he claims that this recoiling happens in teal. Now, my version of teal was not to push away desire, but I was doing a lot of abstaining. I was making sure that I ate a certain amount of calories. I didn't want to be fat, but that could have been from the conformity aspect. But this idea of restriction is very relevant to teal, and I agree with that. So my commentary is that the reason why violet is into pushing away desire is because this generally happens in every other stage. Every feminine stage focuses more on what not to do versus what to do. I'm not going to read my notes verbatim, but I also want to say it in a way that can flow well. So that's my goal here. Acknowledging infinite expansion is something that I notice as as part of the later part of your upper tier journey. So in stage clear, you're going to realize completely that all interpretations are accurate. So this video is about Aubergine, so I'm not going to go into depth there. I also don't want to spend too much time on teal either. Okay. So illnesses could happen in later stages. And then Ken Wilber discusses supermind. But I really want to discuss just Aubergine, so I'm fast forwarding. I'm going down to anywhere where it's talking about the overmind and not supermind. Here's more. Okay, so now we're going to go through just facts about Aubergine, and I'll give some commentary. So stage Aubergine can make sense out of anything. So we're going back in time because these are my newest results. These are my newest teachings. And then you'll see the older and older teachings as I go along. They make sense out of anything because their mind is so powerful. I can't say my mind is so powerful because it's the stage's mind. The stage's mind is powerful enough to make sense out of anything. So nothing is illogical. And if it is illogical, your brain just fixes the information so that it makes sense. And then it thereby gets created, and even people around you start agreeing with you because you said it or you even thought it. It's an unbelievable phase of development. So models don't just become easy, but fitting everything into their proper categories and labels just happens fluently. Okay, turquoise and yellow facts. I'm skipping that. Okay, so the theme of stage Aubergine is management. That's something I realized. It's about managing beliefs, managing emotions, because they want to live life. But at the same time, they know that they can't live life, you know? You want to make money, but you can't make money if you don't have a job. So it's the same idea here. You want to live life the best way possible. You can't do that unless you manage everything properly. You manage yourself. So you manage not just emotions and beliefs, but you also manage your thoughts. You manage your habits. You understand your habits so that if you do have the habit, it's manageable. It's not a stage of fighting fears, which I suggested recently. Rather, it's managing your current state in the most conducive way possible for your well-being. So when I fought my fears, it's not a stage of fighting your fears. It's a state of managing your fears. Oh, I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid. Well, no, I'm no longer really afraid of heights, but I'm afraid of death, maybe. You know, so then I'm like, oh, I'm afraid that this harness may break. Okay, well, statistically, it's not really possible, and if it does, okay, at least I lived life enjoyably. It's putting things into perspective because you're managing your emotions. So some of the grammar here may be off because I just jotted this down recently. Sage Aubergine will also be very receptive or attuned to their own body's needs. So for example, you have a slight stomach ache. They resolve to see see why they have a stomach ache. So they think about what do they eat, what do they need to correct in their diet or daily activities. The moment they have a craving, it's like, why would I be craving this, they ask. You know, is it smart to be eating now? Can I just have vitamins that my body's probably craving the vitamins in the food I'm thinking about? So seeing what nutrients you may need, it's part of stage Aubergine. They see their minds as speaking to them like a friend. So every thought you have is no accident. Something within yourself is communicating with you. The fact that I had a thought, it's because I'm speaking to myself, or a part of me, the body, as a living organism, wants to communicate what it needs. So the very thought itself becomes, oh, I'm thinking about this because there's something relevant about this topic that can help me. Now, what is that? I'm thinking about a certain girl. Oh, you know what? I didn't love myself today. Or I'm thinking about a certain food. Oh, I didn't have enough nutrients, or I need to have attention. Oh, you know what? I didn't bond with family today. I didn't reach out to people. And there's a need that's being communicated with every phenomenon that takes place. A slight headache, and then I wonder why it's bothering me. I either massage it or I've taken deep breaths, but I'm very receptive to any possible thing, any possible change within my internal experience. In previous stages, what did you say when you got a headache? I want ice cream. But they don't even notice that they have a headache. It takes them longer to notice that they have a headache. So it doesn't mean you're in a low stage if you can't notice if you have a headache and why you feel aggravated. It's because you have a headache. But generally speaking, stage teal and above is very receptive to their own body's needs. Stage coral kind of ignores them. They say to themselves, I'd rather just not think about how confused I am. It's about not admitting that you don't know things. There are things that you're uncomfortable admitting about to yourself, about yourself. That the nature of self doesn't exist. Oh my gosh, everything is a construct. You kind of are afraid of delving more into that, and so you kind of become more comfortable with that in stage teal naturally. When stage Aubergine deals with an unfruitful endeavor. So when they come across a project that they are not able to accomplish, even if that means trying to enjoy life and not being able to for whatever reason, it leads to emotional setbacks. What am I saying here? But how do they adjust to these emotional setbacks? They find the minute details for why they're going through this. Oh, so that's the point. If they have to sacrifice pleasure, they're so smart that they'll find a way to bypass the system so that they can have as much pleasure as possible. I heard that the OMA diet could lead to high blood pressure because you're eating so much sugar. So I bought a blood pressure I've been measuring my blood pressure every day just to make sure that it's properly regulated, so I have a little bit less the next day. But you see, I'm regulating myself because I want to enjoy life as much as possible. So it's interesting how that works. That they're very efficient and they're very systematic with how they enjoy life. I need to enjoy life as much as possible, so let's make sure we're capable of handling that. The body's able to handle that. Okay. Now that Auber has decided the spiritual sciences are more valid, sifting through becomes its main priority. It no longer believes in classical scientific laws, but starts creating new criteria for measurement. Oh, okay. So in stage teal, you said spirituality is the key because everything's intangible. Everything is a construct. Everything is the mind. Everything is neurons. That's the basic, in turquoise and teal, the epiphanies keep growing in these feminine stages. But in stage Aubergine, you're like, I'd rather have one truth, so let's investigate the sciences to derive that one truth. But they know that scientists are idiots. So they stop trusting them. And so they do their own measurements. I wanted to make a video about this. I grew an inch in the last year. Guess how old I am? I'm 29 freaking years old. So how did that happen? Because I did several stretches. I've been eating healthy. I've been working out. So my body just straightened out. My muscles got larger and I grew bigger. Everything about me grew. So what you think is classical science is just BS. It's a collective paradigm that says this is true and that's not true. But as you advance, you realize they're BS. And so later stages become the best scientists because they find the gaps that the current scientists are missing because they're too caught in their bubble and in their ways of thinking. Anyways, I'm not here to bash science. On the contrary, the whole point is to emphasize science, just to investigate everything yourself. Look for the confounding variables that can dismiss classical sciences when you have an intuition that there's something off here. And the pyramids, could you build the pyramids 5,000, 10,000 years ago? There's something going on here. Obviously, they had much more advanced technologies than we believe. It's just common sense. So you investigate the scientific analyses and you compare it with the facts, and you're like, you're biased. And that's the conclusion a smart person in later stages draws. That obviously there were advanced civilizations that existed more than 5,000 and even 10,000 years ago. They know that everyone's minds are connected, so that if they think of an idea, right? If I think of an idea, someone else already thought of it, because we're one. So they have this awareness. And so the competition that comes about in stage Aubergine is about who can share the ideas the fastest. Because they know that if I don't share it now, someone else will. It's going to happen because we're one. So I better write this down. Because the minds are interconnected. So therefore, competition is universally psychic, or the equivalent of what you understand as psychic. And since every thought is like waves happening to pass by, the collective unconscious is like a wave of energy or ideas or thoughts, and it's passing everyone by. And if it happens to pass by you and influence your thinking, so that you come up with some novel idea, you better write that down because you got lucky. Take advantage of that opportunity. So that's how they experience competition. There's probably several other categories of competition, but that's one psychic phenomenon of competition that can and probably will take place. Stage clear, skipping, stage Auber. They appreciate diversity of experience. They rather many different things over a lot of the same things. So, for example, I bought a dozen donuts that were different. I'm not going to buy the same donut because I'm not eating donuts to be unhealthy. I'm eating donuts to experience life. An obese person eats donuts because he's unhealthy. So he's gonna eat literally the same donut twice. I'm thinking, what an idiot. And I have a flashback of Tony Robbins, who said, why the heck would you watch the same movie twice? Like, personally, I have a very good memory. I mean, not a photographic, but my mind compartmentalizes everything so that if I remember one aspect of something, I remember the whole thing. So that could be a product of later stages. But I think I also have the skill, and I've always had the skill. And as I enter to the stage, the skill just gets enhanced. So maybe, yeah, that's... Unless you want to say, unless maybe not, and in stage Aubergine is just making me have this extraordinary ability. But basically, Tony Robbins said, why would you watch something twice? And I agree with that. The moment I watch 1 minute of the movie, I remember the whole thing. I'm like, oh shoot, why should I have to watch this movie twice? And he said the reason why people watch movies twice is because they're trying to get that feeling they once had, because they're not living life. If you're living life, everything would be new and vibrant. You wouldn't have to watch the same movie twice to get that feeling. I think that was the point he was trying to bring out. If not, it's something similar. So you appreciate diversity of experiences rather than many of the same things. Like, instead of going skydiving 100 times, I'll do it twice, because I want to diversify. First you go swimming, and then you go skydiving, and you go parachuting, paragliding, all that. In general, masculine stages speak less, and they follow through with more actions. I've mentioned this in the beginning. Coral realizes that the ego prevents outcome, so they choose action, right? Coral chooses action rather than passivity. And action is different in every stage. But there's a point that I'm bringing out. Now, in Aubergine, their form of action is very flexible in how they choose to act. They know, They know people's inner resistance gets triggered with your speech. So that's why they speak less, because sage coral has this realization that if you talk about what you're going to do, then the collective ego is going to try to stop you, right? Or might. But Aubergine says is very flexible, so they'll kind of lie. Like if they say they'll do something, they might not do it because something changed in the collective unconscious immediately. And Ken Wilber discusses this in regard to the overmind. It's like a wholeness of wholeness. They have they're very receptive to time and space. And I've had the skill since coral, so it could be I've been accessing clear this whole time. I just didn't realize it, which means I might be in stage topaz and above that, but I'm not going to go there. Right now, I'm believing I'm in stage aubergine for organization's sakes. And stage aubergine believes that if they say something that's going to influence collective perception, and if they sense that, they're just going to change their actions. So they might appear inauthentic or lying to other people because they won't do what they said they'll do, because they're forced to do something else because they said it. So what they end up doing is they speak less about what their projects are. They keep kind of silent about what their true intentions are because they have to, because you're trying to trick mankind. You're trying to trick the ego. And obviously trickery has a negative connotation, but you're trying to make sure that you can help people in a way that factors in how people function, that they have an ego that's resistant to the truth. So you gotta just leave information, tell them how it is. That's what Aubergine does, but also speak less. And if you tell them how it is and it's the truth, I mean, it's always the truth, then you'll have to change up. You'll have to adjust your whole thought process so that the way it's worded, it'll be received well in the future. So sometimes there might be a discrepancy because of that phenomenon, because they're very receptive to what's going on in the collective unconscious. So this is very deep. This is advanced stuff. So just meditate on it, why it might be true, and then if you still don't understand it, don't worry about it. So we got more supermind, and we got more Aubergine again. Pseudoscience. So stage Aubergine takes the pseudoscience of stage clear, and they make it a reality. For example, stage clear believes that X and Y causes this and this, and Aubergine says, yeah, X and Y causes this and this only because of this and this. So I wrote 2 examples. Let's see if this is enough. They make conditions and clarifications the same way Orange clarified why a person has a sense of fear, putting their hand into an empty box at night. So in stage purple and stage blue, they both get superstitious. There might be demons. There might be demons, okay? But stage orange says there might be a snake. So really there's something programmed in the brain to be superstitious or fearful for the unknown, because you might get damaged, you might get hurt. And so stage orange is also afraid, but they overcome that fear with intellectualization. What's the probability? And why do I have a sense of fear? I have a sense of fear because I'm a human. I have these instincts. And stage, right? So instead of saying evil spirits is the reason I'm afraid, there's something dark about this and sinister. It's something much different. So it's a comparison there. There's a clarification on why something took place, and therefore they overcome fears, or they handle the situation, balancing out for teal's intuitive way of thinking about things. Right? That's just a natural byproduct of using mostly intuition and then going into the logical mind again. So the logical mind is not like the logical mind of orange, but it has a hint of orange in the sense that they want the truth. Whereas teal, it's like, I don't care about the truth. I don't give a hoot. All I want to know about the truth is if this is going to bring us together. So I'll adopt any truth because it's all true as long as it brings us together. And when religion started in blue, they all said the same thing. I don't care if this person is the savior because of this and this. I just want to believe that he's the savior, and we'll all unite around that. And we'll vote on what he meant by this and what he meant by this. But there's one uniting factor. So too, in stage teal, I don't care if tarot cards work because of this and this. There's just one uniting factor. It's because of the intuitive spirit. Intuition is tapping into the spirit. So we'll settle on one criteria, and that'll be the belief system, And this also hints that stage teal will have many diverging belief systems regarding intuition, the self, and God, and how interconnected God is to your own opinion. They'll have different belief systems that are offshoots of this one concept of wanting to conform to some collective belief when they're just searching for the need of community and belonging. Sage Aubergine says it's not that the light turned on. Because the light turned on because Sage Teal says the light turned on because God communicated with me. I was having a rough night speaking to God. So Sage Aubergine says that rather the light turned on because your higher self knew that you were right. That instead of God, instead of using that to say you're right, it's like I am right. It's a knowing that you're right instead of believing that it's separate from you. There's less of a duality maybe, which is ironic because you would think that Aubergine's more dualistic because now they're focusing on the rational mind again, but it doesn't always work that way. Some things come back, some things get left behind, and it's also very different than it was in the previous rung. It's a different color. This is supernatural. I think I mentioned this, I'm not sure. I can tell what people are thinking just by looking at their facial expressions. Now, I tested this out with stage blue people because they take life very seriously, and I also was raised around blue people. So I know their pains and their feelings just by looking at their facial expressions. I can almost tell what, So Ken Wilber explains that in the supermind, you experience people as if you're them. So either I'm in the supermind already, or you can say, no, this is pre-supermind. This is instead of experiencing them, intellectually understanding them. Because I feel a detachment, I don't feel caught up in the problems, I just know the problems. So I sense all their baggage and concerns without the side effects of the weight of their problems. Overmind ultraviolet again. So we're going back in time. So these are the oldest novelties. So I wrote down schizo goals happen in Aubergine, a conflict of interest between the spiritual and the physical. A search for esteem embodies this dualism as well. And the actualization process is realizing you don't need to choose one path. A resolution to embrace both the physical and spiritual, which is where the transcendence happens. So as I'm understanding the stage more and more, my own understanding changes. So I don't see it 100% this way, but more or less it resonates. That you have one final stride until clear, where you're just caught up in the physical. But then once you match that with what Ken Wilber said, that the physical comes up probably because lower rungs need to be dealt with. Either you didn't have enough materialism or some variation of that, or even a needing to substitute because no one relates to you, different needs are not met. Whatever the reason, physicality becomes important again. And so this is basically saying before the transcendence, you have to get it out of your system. You have to be in the physical world before that enlightenment comes upon you. Now, if you follow my 4-pattern model, you understand that the enlightenment happens because there's a 4-pattern state. There's a 4-pattern system where transcendence happens every 4th stage. Why 4? Why isn't 3? Whatever. It's something I found. Shines via a delegated fundamental dualism. So this is something Ken Wilber wrote. This explains the preference for a singular truth so as to avoid multi-dimensional outlooks. Then the pendulum swings and you enter into the multidimensional and clear. This is to explain why they think of, why they have a dualism in their mind. So I commented that Ken Wilber is referring to wanting, Aubergine wanting dualism in the sense that they want definitives. So he doesn't say that they want definitives, but I'm commenting, yeah, the dualism manifests in this particular way. It's funny, people can make dualism out of, or duality out of non-duality, and non-duality out of duality. And in my old religion, the Torah, people say, don't make an idol out of the Torah. So it's the same idea here. They're both the same. That's why when people say, you're so dualistic, I'm like, oh my gosh, get away from me, turquoise. It's like, shut up already. You don't get anything. But, and even Ken Wilber notices this, that part of the allergy is against duality, because it's part of a belief system. Oh, you have to get away from duality, because that's what may help them survive. So that's something to keep in mind, that you're not trying to run away from duality. It's just duality happens to be an important component that got forgotten in the Western world. Sorry, the opposite. Non-duality is an important component that got forgotten in the Western world because of the emphasis on duality and dualistic thinking. So it has nothing to do with what's more important. They're both tools that you need to harmonize with, to navigate with, and they'll both evolve in various ways. And they can exist in complete opposite fashions. Such that in stage teal, you can have a problem with being dualistic about abstinence, and the opposite, you could be, like for me, I was so dualistic growing up with monotheism that I'm balancing out and saying, I was so fixated on monotheism that I'm balancing out and saying, no, you got to get away from all belief systems. So in teal, I don't have any belief systems. So it could be someone else entering teal will create belief systems, whereas I let them go because I have a value to just let them go. It's not worth it. Okay. So I hinted earlier, they're aware of their own spirit causing events, and it's intercorrelated to the external world. Therefore, if something is unhealthy for you, the atmosphere will respond to protect or minimize that agenda. So the example that came up with me with the donuts, I was eating too many donuts one day, and a power outage happened that prevented me from warming them up a third day straight in the microwave. So it actually brought to my mind, oh, if I have another set, I may feel lousy. So it actually helped me. So I derived this idea that your spirit is actually guiding what's good for you. Obviously, there's a whole slew of thousands of things you can find in your own life that can prove this, but that's one thing that I found with me. Sage Aubergine also likes to investigate things himself. They don't trust standard scientists, which we mentioned. That was one of my first novel ideas I came up with. And they will try to live life rather than waiting around. They embody action more. They're efficient at maximizing pleasure and maintaining health in the best possible way, despite that pursuit. They avoid formal rituals. So rather than jump in and treat... Oh, so this is where sex becomes kind of transactional. Or the opposite. It's weird. The stage Aubergine's view on sex is something you do because you have a buildup of semen, right? But then all the women are stuck in stage orange and green because they're so focused on security. So they're, because society hasn't encouraged them to evolve. You have rare occasions of women evolving, but they really have to focus on it. They really have to work at it to reach stage yellow and above. So if you find, so it's really difficult to have intimacy. So Sage Aubergine says, in order to, so I'm just going to tell you what I wrote. They'd rather be able to jump in to sex, just, instead of formalities of like going to a party and then, getting her to feel attracted by you and making her build rapport, maybe get her number, maybe not, instead of going through all the formalities, they just rather jump into it. But no girl's going to want to do that. And no girl should want to do that because it's unhealthy. So basically, Sage Aubergine's in this bind where they don't pursue materialism in a classical way, but then they seem strange to stage orange girls. who say, you know, and like for the last 2 days, the song Strange by The Doors, something like Strange, has been popping into my head because that's the way I've been feeling lately in stage Aubergine. Just I feel strange. I feel very different from other people. And this especially happened when I made the video on The Matrix, on creating reality, because I felt like 7 people watched it. No one really commented. No one really liked it, basically. Maybe one person. Because I felt like intuitively that they don't really relate to it. You know, okay, you create reality with a collective belief system, but we're just 10 people here. Are we really going to create something big for the world? So I just sensed like something was off. They felt like people coming across it felt that was strange. I felt strange. Sage Aubergine also doesn't like the games that you have with sex. They understand that they understand humans as like these creatures that are very they're like prototypes of something much greater. You know, they're like animals, and lower stages view you like the animal because you just want to have sex, get your libido going, and then forget about it. Maybe it comes back in an hour, maybe it comes back in 2 days. It doesn't matter. Just get it over with. And they view that as primitive. But really, that's how Aubergine sees the world. If it's a need, get it over with. But society doesn't cater to that, so they're like, society sucks. We need to change this. I don't know how. Okay, whatever. They're not attached to changing society, but they kind of know how to do it. They kind of have they're very well balanced so that they can make videos that are going to get the point home. Like this video is getting the point home because that's a skill you adopt in later stages. You have the patience and the acceptance and the coping mechanisms, the coping strategies, the management of your own internal state of affairs so that it's not a big deal. You know, it is a big deal, but it's not a big deal. They're able to understand it as not the biggest deal. They know things will change. They know things will evolve. Doesn't matter how long, it will happen. So that wraps it up. That wraps up all my notes. I tried to make this a master video of Aubergine. I hope you enjoyed. I know I was looking at my notes the whole time, less on the camera, but content is more important. And even if only 7 people watch this, my 7 constant followers, you know, that's still significant. It still changes the world. It helps guide people in the right direction and to see what's possible in these higher stages. Because Ken Wilber is often talking about how these higher stages have these allergies. They push away materialism, they welcome it too much, and they have these aversions and recoiling, and they don't function as well. But it is possible to function well. It will happen. It will change. You can change it. We can change it. Change the systems. Give that voice to people that are advancing, so everyone can be taken care of without dysfunction. In all rungs, all parts of the spectrum. Take care.